Hey, everybody. Hope everybody's having a magical, fantastic day. And I just wanted to come on and do a quick live just to kind of catch people up. Haven't done any lives here in a while. So wanted to do a quick live and planning to keep active throughout the month of June, both with Facebook Lives, with our podcast as well, and felt this might be a good way to kick things off. So, what I wanted to pose the question today around is it ultimately um, true that you don't have to be great? So, what do I mean by this question? Well, let me tell you a little story that I think helps explain this. But basically, whenever I started my journey, I had the opportunity to interview the late, great Zig Ziglar. Now, it was basically after his accident that he had. I believe he had fallen down the stairs. He was around 83, I believe, and he was challenged by short term memory issues. And so this was such a humbling thing to be able to interview a person who was really the first speaker that I'd ever seen, and really, in a lot of ways, transformed my life. I'm still to this day a fan of Zig Ziglar. And one of the things that Zig Ziglar said, one of his great quotes, that's why I bring up getting the chance to interview him, is one of his great quotes was, you don't, now I'm going to see if I can say it correctly, but I'm really paraphrasing it. But the gist was, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. So I want to share that quote first and foremost. Now, the thing is, I think this is actually good news for anyone who's waiting to start, because again, it gives you permission. So if you're holding off on something because you don't think you're great yet, I actually think this quote and Ziglar's teaching in this regard gives us hope. And I believe it to be true as well. So one of the things that I say that's kind of similar to that is around book writing. Excuse me. Around book writing, I hear a lot of people say to me, "Oh, I have this perfect book," or I'll talk to somebody who's been working on a book, and I know they started, 5 years ago. They were telling me about the book, and they're still working on it, and they never release the book because they just can't let go of it. It feels like it's not perfect yet. And often I'll say to people, you know what? Someone else's book that is okay, but is released and out there in the world is actually impacting more lives than your perfect book that nobody will ever read. And I say nobody will ever read, I mean, if you never release it. So I guess the question becomes at this point, what have you been holding off on because you don't feel you're great enough yet? So I was in Liverpool, I guess it was last year, and I was doing the Beatles stuff. If people here probably know, I'm a pretty big John Lennon fan and therefore a Beatles fan. And I was on the tours, and they were talking about how the Beatles, when they started, were okay. They were an okay band. They were good enough to get by. But it wasn't until they went to Hamburg for 2 years and played, according to the song, 8 days a week, that they became great. When they came back to Liverpool, they were all of a sudden the best band around. But it's because they put in, as we've heard about before, the 10,000 hour rule, perhaps. They put in most of their 10,000 hours during those 2 years. So again, they weren't great when they started, but they worked to become great. And so again, I think this is a testament that you don't have to be great, you can become great. So I guess to give you a little bit from my world that also connects to this as well. Some of you know this part of my background, but when I started playing music, I was tone deaf, terrible. I would say in my own words, I had one of my early girlfriends that I finally played guitar in front of and sang in front of told me it was terrible. But that's the beginning. After that, I ended up getting nominated. My last CD was nominated for Rock Recording of the Year. This is somebody that was terrible. I also performed stand-up comedy for years. And a lot of you know, when I performed stand-up comedy, I didn't get my first laugh. I feel like it was, a year to a year and a half before I got a real laugh. One of my last shows that I ever performed and I was invited to was at the famed Second City Comedy School. And that was actually the first time Shelley ever got to see me perform. So really the only time, she's seen me 3 times since, but the only time up until that point she'd ever seen me perform was at Second City. That was pretty cool. But again, I didn't get a laugh for like over a year, I feel like. First time I was speaking on stage, I was covered in sweat. Don't remember what I said, turned multiple shades of color. Some of you know now I've since spoken on 5 TEDx stages. Another part of my backstory and my origin story, as they'd say in the hero world, superhero world, or fan fiction, is I didn't read my first book until age 27. Didn't know the difference between fiction and nonfiction when I graduated, and barely graduated high school where I got a 49+1. Figured out the other day that I've since been involved in over 35 best-selling books. Now, first of all, you get the idea, but hopefully also, if you know me well enough, you know this isn't meant to be a me sermon or look what I've done. This is just meant to demonstrate what's possible, you know, regardless of where you start. I mean, I certainly wasn't born with many, and I'm going to say this openly, many talents that were very, I'm going to say, apparent, I guess is the best word I could use there. But one of the things I often say is it doesn't matter where you start, it's what you do next. I'll go so far as to say as well, it doesn't matter what happens to you, it's what you do next. And so the question I have is, what have you been waiting on? What have you been not starting because you feel you're not great? What have you not done because of either where you started or what happened to you? My hope is you'll now take action on that thing. And I can't wait to see where that leads. So feel free to let me know what you take action on and where that leads. Last thing I want to share is, as some of you know, the Enlightened Passenger book is now out. I'm doing everything I can to try to get it into as many hands as I can. So we have some really cool bonuses on. So if you want to get the 5 bonuses that come with the book, including a training we did in the past around how we've helped people who've been trying to land their TEDx talks, a training that I did actually at Stanford University around how the top companies can charge more than their competitors and how you can too. So the main things that they share in common. A copy of one of my books is one of the instant bonuses. Top 10 PDF guide of the top 10 insights I've learned from the world's top thought leaders is part of it as well. So a lot of instant bonuses, and then there's some non-instant bonuses, which is we are running some live events coming up. Some of you may or may not have seen, but we're running some live events coming up. One is featuring Ken Honda and Janet Atwood. So Ken from Mind Valley and Janet Atwood from The Passion Test. We have another one coming up with the Richard Paul Evans, who wrote the foreword for my book. And he's a 46-time New York Times bestselling author. And we're going to be joining Mark Victor Hansen from Chicken Soup for the Soul and Crystal Hansen as well from Ask. And also, so you get access to these 2 events, these 2 live events, if you grab a copy of the book. On top of that, we're also doing an event with Brian Austin Green from Anger Management 90210, Sharna Burgess from Dancing with the Stars, and Randy Spelling for 90210. And then we're also doing our 3-day live virtual boot camp coming up as well. So you get access to all these events and the 5 instant bonuses, literally just for buying a single copy of the book. So if that intrigues you, the book is at thisisthebook.com. Again, thisisthebook.com. But I want to leave you with the theme of this video, which is, again, you don't have to be great to start, but you do have to start to be and or become great. Until next time, everybody, I'm Corey Poirier. Have a magical rest of your day.